Guilds, homesteads, and the rise of national finance. A short history. My grandmother's rocking chair felt perfect, centuries of craftsmanship, tight joints, balanced weight. Tracing its maker led me away from a single artisan and into a vanished economic architecture, the guild system. For generations, craftsmen operated inside community rules, not hourly wages or paycheck cycles. They used standardized pricing guides, measured work with teams to prevent overcharging, and extended credit by reputation. The result was local fairness, durable construction, and economic relations based on mutual obligation rather than intermediaries taking a cut of every transaction. The Carpenters' Company of Philadelphia, founded in 1724, exemplified that order. Its rule book contained formulas for every beam, joint, and finish, the same practical knowledge Thomas Jefferson requested and was refused. This was not quaint backwardness but a functioning system in which trust replaced currency and community oversight disciplined price and quality. Two federal acts in 1862-63 disrupted that world. The Homestead Act of 1862 promised 160 acres of public land for a small fee, an extraordinary democratic gesture. In practice, however, developing a homestead required far more capital than most laborers or farmers possessed. Tools, seed, livestock, and building materials raised the real cost to levels many could not meet. Speculators and corporations captured much of the land instead. 9 months later, in 1863, the National Currency Act established a national banking system and the office of the Comptroller of the Currency. The law required banks to hold treasury securities, creating guaranteed buyers for federal debt and enabling note issuance tied to bond ownership. Within a few years, state bank notes were taxed out of existence. A 2% tax on state notes in 1864 rose to 10% by 1865, effectively destroying many local currencies and the informal credit networks built on them. Where local exchange and barter had functioned, a new financial architecture now demanded participation in national banking and reliance on institutional credit. The human consequences were profound. Company towns proliferated, firms paid workers in scrip usable only at company stores, which eliminated outside competition and allowed employers to capture wages through inflated prices. In some regions, coal companies issued most scrip, workers accumulated debts that bound them to employers. The Pullman strike of 1894, which halted rail traffic nationwide, exposed the system's injustices and prompted investigation, but by then the replacement of local economic autonomy was largely complete. One community resisted. The Amish preserved a contribution-based economy in which members publicly pool resources for medical bills and other needs. Their system functions like mutual insurance and interest-free credit without corporate intermediaries. Protecting that practice required a special exemption from Social Security participation, granted by Congress in 1965. That exemption underscores how radically the national system had displaced older arrangements. To keep a traditional communal economy, a group had to petition the federal government for permission. There is an archival wrinkle worth noting. Genealogists call the period around 1870 a brick wall because many families become harder to trace before then. The 1890 census, which might have clarified things, was damaged in an 1896 fire and much of the remainder authorized for destruction by Congress in 1933, the day before the National Archives' new fireproof repository was formally sanctioned. Whether coincidence or conspiracy, the result was that vast swaths of local records and pre-replacement social history were lost or rendered fragmentary. When I sit in that rocking chair, I imagine the craftsman who made it and the world in which he worked, one where neighbors traded services and credit by reputation, where pricing guides and communal oversight constrained exploitation, and where durable goods were the norm. In a short span of years, the legal and financial landscape shifted. Acts that promised land and national finance enabled the monetization of life, the rise of institutional creditors, and the decline of self-organizing economic communities. I offer no definitive conclusions, only a sequence of developments to consider. The Homestead Act and the National Currency Act arrived within months of each other. Local currencies and guild systems were marginalized by a national banking regime that favored debt instruments and institutional intermediaries. Company towns and scrip replaced many older forms of mutual obligation. Communities that maintained older systems needed special legislative permission to do so, and many records that might illuminate the transition were lost. Ask what these changes meant for the people who built things to last, who extended credit to neighbors, and who counted on trust rather than banks. Consider as well how much of local economic knowledge and agency was displaced when a national system designed to finance government debt became the dominant structure of daily life. The rocking chair remains. The questions raised by the system that replaced its world do not disappear.